Good evening. The August 10th, 2026 Metropolitan School District of Wayne Township Board of Education regular board meeting is called to order. Rise and pledge allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So Dave Markoff, roll call.
Brandon Bowman,
Present.
Susan Graves, present. Karen Burke, present. Michael Gordon, Anika Graham, present. Ben Wakefield,
Present.
and Sherry Irving Markoff. We are all present.
Thank you very much. Board has been provided with a copy of tonight's agenda. We have a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Make a motion, we accept the agenda as presented.
A motion and a second. Any comment or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
The agenda is approved. Thank you, Paul. Moving right into recognitions, Dr. Suggs.
Favorite times during the board meeting, when we can recognize community member for their contributions to our students, to teachers. Tonight, our Wayne Way Volunteer Award. Great schools don't happen without great communities, and great communities don't happen without great schools. Tonight, we're recognizing our August recipient of the Wayne Way Volunteer Award, which honors volunteers who go above and beyond to support our students and schools. It is my pleasure to welcome up Laura Driver. Laura Dreyer became a host mentor back in 2011 when she met host instructor Lisa Burdine at Bridgeport Elementary's back to school night. You remember that? Oh, yeah. That was 15 years ago. It goes fast, doesn't it? In that time, Laura has mentored over 50 students in the host program. Laura first started, she mentored only at Bridgeport Elementary, but when her son was admitted to the Horizons program at McClellan, she expanded her commitment. Now she mentors at both schools each week after week, year after year. What makes Laura special is the way she shows up for students. She's patient, she's kind, she truly gets them engaged in their reading every single time she mentors. It's not just about going through the motions, she brings the text to life. Lisa Burdine recalls one moment that says everything about Laura's approach. Her student was reading an article about fingerprints. Laura took the time to show her student their very own fingerprint by using a pencil rubbing on paper. That simple, thoughtful gesture made such an impact that the student talked about that experience the rest of the week. Beyond mentoring, Laura has donated endless amounts of books to the classroom, supporting literacy and giving students access to stories that matter. Lisa Burdine, who nominated Laura, said it best. I've been privileged to have Laura as a host mentor. Thank you, Laura, for being such an amazing host mentor. Please join me in celebrating Laura Driver, 15 years of patience, kindness, and commitment to our school. How you keep the energy. Two schools, we can only.
First, it has so much energy, it overflows. So it's a great inspiration and just makes it easy.
I'm going to make an assumption, tell me if I'm right or wrong. Part of, because I've been part of host for a very long time too, you feel like you made a difference.
Oh,
How do you know?
well, seeing the skills grow, seeing folks kids who start off very quiet and reserved, being in confidence and just in so many ways, not only in reading, but just talking to a new adult and talking about themselves. It's just seeing the confidence grow and having the conversations is very inspiring, very energizing.
We can't thank you enough. We did put this flag together for you. You exemplify the Wayne way, the spirit of showing up for one another and being all in for our students and our schools. I am Wayne, you are Wayne, we are Wayne. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that. Thank you so much. Thank you for all you do.
We started together.
I know.
And who did you bring with you tonight?
I've got my son, Jeffrey Dreyer, who went to Bridgeport and McClellan, finished at Ben Davis in 23. My husband, Dan, who's also been a volunteer mentor for a number of years.
Thank you so much. And Ms. Bernard,
Or Miss Bernard,
and principal.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming.
Yes,
Thank you for the support. Congratulations. We're still recognizing it, that's right. This recognition, also goes beyond words. Our Wayne Township Education Foundation, supports students, teachers every day, year after year. This is their 35th year they're celebrating. That's a long time, and they work so hard to support our classrooms. And I think I'm safe in saying there's so many things we wouldn't be able to do without you. So we appreciate that work you do. We appreciate the collaboration. And tonight's project we're going to talk about, I'm going to let Dr. Walter share a little bit about it.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board. We wanted to provide just a little bit of context around the magnitude of this support from the Education Foundation. As you might recall, with some of our fiscal decisions in the past year and a half, we did cut study tables from our 7 through 12 states. With that, the Education Foundation approached Dr. Suggs with an opportunity. And so we obviously know that freshman trajectory, we have the freshman center. That research has never deviated from the power of being on track as a freshman. But we wanted to take a look at this opportunity, not so much to simply replace or supplant the study table experience for 7 through 12, but really to look at what would be a return on investment with an investment of this magnitude. So again, I won't reiterate or belittle the importance of that 9th grade performance. It's the strongest indicator of success for students in terms of high school graduation. So we started to look at what is that specific support that we could provide with the loss of study tables at the 9th grade center. In those conversations, the proposal to the Education Foundation included just the evolution of this work. We really didn't want to take away from the legacy of study tables. We very much understood that this had broad academic assistance for students, those varying needs. But we noticed too that across our 7 through 12 spaces, that was largely implemented in a voluntary, sort of continuous and reactive way. And we weren't able, with the data points that we had, to directly equate the study table experience with student growth and academic achievement. So with our proposal, we shifted that to really focus on that freshman year, the on-track metrics of the accountability system that I'll review momentarily, to look really at objective data in terms of not being so much reactive, but knowing when we can identify these risk factors in terms of failures, attendance, credit accrual at semester, and at the end of the year, looking at that identification and intervention proactively. So that proposal includes 5 strategic checkpoints, which again, I'll briefly go over momentarily. But what we really are eager to take a look at is our KPIs tied to that. When those key performance indicators for our students at the freshman level being on track, we're able to point to that specific intervention assisting in that way. Of course, at the core of this is our students. We absolutely see that the benefit will enhance their experience in that freshman year, but this aligns very nicely with the new state accountability model in terms of their definition of on-track freshmen. So we will really take a look at how they define the credits across the courses, leaving that freshman year as it relates to the state accountability model. I mentioned briefly those checkpoint safety nets, and Mr. Day and his amazing team will take a look at what this will look like in practice here in the coming months. But we will look at those really strategic time for freshmen in terms of credit accrual and mastery-based learning in that 9 weeks semester, 9 weeks in semester of second semester, and then hopefully whittling down to some true needs, exhaustive needs for that summer intervention after that freshman year for students. So with that, again, cannot express the magnitude of the support, but the Wayne Township Education Foundation allowed us to take a look at this model and awarded us the opportunity to provide that support for our students. And we greatly thank them.
So, before we have the Education Foundation come up, if administration can come up, we have both our principal and both of our assistant, yes, you. Both of our assistant. Yeah, come on up. Angela, plays a dual role. She is a teacher at the ninth grade center, if you'll come on up. And from your perspective, talk a little bit, the new accountability system, K-12 is different and really helps to shape how we make sure that our freshman students are ready. So talk to all of us about the importance of the study tables, what you want to see happen. And then I know, Angela, you did the presentation. When anyone wants to add that, please do.
Yep. So definitely very appreciative to the Education Foundation to make this opportunity possible. We spent the last year digging into research, utilizing the make or break year as a case study to really dig into the research and best practices. When we look at the accountability system, knowing that our kids are on track to hit those metrics, earning those credits, and also finding that understanding what they're passionate about and how we make that again be fruitful for their future. Angela is our one-track champion for the school, so now to repurpose that into having a focus on data and analysis, as well as looking at tier 1, 2, and 3 intervention. This study table opportunity into the summer is going to have those tiered interventions where we have the real-time hands-on with our kids to make sure that we're getting kids to meet the academic. And all those indicators we see being met with all of these attention.
Anyone else?
Appreciative of all the work she's already done. I mean, we've been in school for a week and a half and she has hit the ground with 90 miles an hour. And we appreciate that because we can't wait.
I'm excited, that I like to for that. Freshman has been a passion of mine for this. Those who've known me a long time know that my master's thesis was about the credit opportunities and using the consortium, the University of Chicago consortium support my thesis so long ago. So I'm thrilled to be able to not only walk back through that research that has continued since I got into school, but to even have a bigger effect.
What I also point out, board, is that this work, with the assistance of the Education Foundation, fits nicely into the work we've been doing in Bristol. In terms of bringing the community together, to make these pathways known to our students, making sure that they know what the possibilities are. So everything we've been working on for the past year, 18 months, really fits nicely with this work. And I'm always talking about, not just I, but all of us are talking about the system and the things that we do. Does it fit with what we're doing, or is it just the next thing to do, the shiny item out here that we're going to try? And this work, again, is so important to make sure our students are on track but just not on track, but really understanding what they want to do with their futures and starting those conversations. So with that, and take the foundation, you want to make the presentation?
That's your board, so the board can see it first.
Yeah. All right, Education Foundation, Lisa Fays. Executive Director, tell us a little bit about
Well,
support.
we're really honored to, this is only the second time in our history we've done a gift of this level in one lump sum. The last one was in 2013 for Lyndhurst Host's program back in the day. So we're honored to be in a position to be able to do that. We can't do it every year. This year, and help to launch this program. We're really grateful to Angie. She put on her teacher hat and her role as the, I don't know what is her. Champion. She's the on-track, and she did a tremendous presentation to our board about this opportunity. She happens to also be a foundation board member as well, so she kind of knew us a little bit too. And she did a really beautiful job presenting it, and they support this opportunity to ensure our students are able to be tracked for their freshman experience, and we get all the accountability that the state is now requiring for this particular audience. So we're thrilled.
We're so appreciative. And as promised, we will track that data very closely. Do a presentation later on about how our students, and we'll be back, right?
Our 35th birthday is on Wednesday, so I'm excited to put this in our little birthday newsletter.
Anything? No, I'm just thrilled when the freshmen come in on track, makes my life so happy.
As president of the Education Foundation, that's.
Well, thank you so much. Again, let's take the name out.
That's truly wonderful. On behalf of the board, thank you so much to the Education Foundation. And congratulations to the ninth grade. Hey, Dr. Suggs, do everyone sign up for public comment this evening?
Do not.
Board, you can provide me with copies of our minutes from the July 2026 meetings of the board. We have a motion to approve minutes as presented. Approval for the minutes as presented. A motion and a second. Any comments or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Moving on to the financial report, Dr. Sandy.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the board, included in your documents for tonight's meeting, you'll find the claims docket totaling $28,940,336.47 for your review. As always, a few items to note for this month. As we manage our cash balance between funds, you can see that we shifted some expenditures from our operations fund to the referendum fund. As we'll discuss in the budget presentation, we continue to spend down cash balance. And those shifts are really just part of that overall strategy to manage cash balance in individual funds. So at the end of those checkpoints for Form 9, there are times when we need to shift things around, make sure that we don't have negative balance and that all things are lining up as expected. I welcome any questions that you have and respectfully ask for approval of the financial report as presented.
I move for approval of the financial report as presented.
motion and a second. Any comment or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? The financial report is approved. Thank you, Dr. Samuel. Moving on to old business, we have a bid recommendation, RFP for desktop devices. Dr. Harvey.
Presidents, members of the board, we floated RFP for the replacement of our aged devices and classroom devices. And we had 17 RFPs, 9 of them being for Lenovo requested and 8 of them being HPs. The highest was $955,000 for 600 devices. And the cheapest or lowest was $553,000 for the same 600 devices. We respectfully request that you approve that we give the winning bid to Staples, supplying us with 600 devices at the cost of $553,000.
Yes. We have a motion and a second to award the request for proposal to Staples, the desktop devices. Any comment or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Dr. Harvey. That bid recommendation is approved.
Thank you so much.
Moving on to new business, human resources, Mr. Fessler.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the board, in board docs, you received human resources reports A1, A2, addendum A1, addendum A2, and addendum A2.1 for your review. I'd like to answer any questions you may have and respectfully ask for approval of human resources reports A1, A2, addendum A1, addendum A2, and addendum A2.1.
Move for approval of schedule A1, schedule A2, addendum A1, addendum A2, and addendum A2.1.
We have a motion and a second. Any comment or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Mr. Fessler. A1, A2, addendum A1, addendum A2, and addendum A2.1 have been approved. Moving on to donations, Drs. Pierce and Walters.
Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Walters and I respectfully request your consideration of the following donations. The first is a monetary donation of $30,000 from Omnisource to Southfield Elementary School. We also have school supplies, backpacks, and meals valued at $6,000 from Vineyard Life Church to Westlake Elementary. Meals and electric pencil sharpeners valued at $2,500 from Mount Pleasant Christian Church, Indy West to Roby Elementary. 39 electric pencil sharpeners valued at $500 from Mount Pleasant Christian Church, Indy West to North Wayne Elementary. School supplies valued at $1,200 from the Church of Revolution and Elevation to North Wayne Elementary. Backpacks, supplies, and YMCA day passes valued at $900 from the YMCA AmeriCorps to Maplewood Elementary. School supplies valued at $300 from Mount Olive United Methodist Church to Bridgeport Elementary. Back to school and welcome signs valued at $150 from teacher Heather Schultz to Stoufffield Elementary. Backpacks and supplies valued at $250 from Vineyard Life Church to North Wayne Elementary. 34 backpacks, 47 pencil boxes, and 85 crayon boxes valued at $150 from Tri Kappa to Rhodes Elementary. 40 folders, 10 notebooks, and 8 backpacks valued at $100 from Samantha Dietz to Rhodes Elementary. 40 backpacks with supplies valued at $300 from WebMD to Rhodes Elementary. 80 backpacks with supplies valued at $1,200 from the Hendricks County YMCA to Rhodes Elementary. 20 backpacks and supplies valued at $250 from Suncrest Apartments to Rhodes Elementary. School supplies valued at $300 from Shelton Heights to Rhodes Elementary. And 30 back-to-school bags valued at $883.40
from Salesforce to Ben Davis High School. Dr. Pierce and I respectfully request approval of tonight's donation.
Make a motion for approval of tonight's donations. A motion and a second. Any comment or discussion?
When I read this morning, I was just, my heart was touched by how generous our community has been to giving to our students and our.
Any additional comment? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Dr. Pierce and Dr. Walters. The donations are approved.
Thank you.
Moving on to field trips, Dr. Walters.
Yes, just one field trip to consider for this evening. Ben Davis Ninth Grade Center, the Grit Club students are requesting one of the EU trips to Europe. This would be the educational value and cultural alignment in 3 countries.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, I can be. They're going over across the pond.
Yeah.
2027. We respectfully request.
For the field trip as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Dr. Walters, could you give the board a brief update on what the Grit Club is?
Yes, so if you're aware, our ninth grade center does club days quarterly and really try to curate opportunities for students during all of that time and during the school day so that we can have equitable access there. The Grit Club, I believe, is really focused on that self-efficacy and that building, sustaining relationships as we transition into the ninth grade year through a lot of social emotional skills.
Any additional comment or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Dr. Walters. That field trip is approved.
Thank you.
Moving on to board policy, second readings. Mr. Fessler.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the board, the first policy ready for second reading tonight is A-175, firearms, weapons, and toy or destructive devices. As a reminder, this policy defines firearms, weapons, and knives under Indiana code. The update also prohibits possession of imitation firearms. And additionally, the update moves a section that outlines the exception to the policy that a person can have a firearm on our grounds if the firearm is in the trunk or glove compartment of a locked vehicle or stored outside. Remember, that exception does not extend to students unless they're a member of the shooting sports team. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have and respectfully ask for approval of revised school board policy A-175.
I move for adoption of school board policy A-175, firearms, weapons, or destructive devices.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Any comment or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Mr. Fessler. Board policy A-175 is approved.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. Our next policy for second reading is C-225, student due process. This policy is updated to match our administrative guidelines as well as our historical practice of the board. It removes the 10-day guideline to consider an appeal, and you can continue to receive the appeal in writing. However, considering an appeal to a member is not required by statute, so you can choose not to hear the appeal. In that case, the student's family can appeal directly to the court. At our last meeting at first reading, you asked for some information, and Dr. Doug sent you that information about our Marion County and surrounding school districts. And we can pause here if you'd like to have some more discussion and bring C-225 back for a third reading, or you have the option to approve this in either of those forms that we discussed earlier, which is choosing to receive and consider appeals or deciding not to receive appeals.
Point of clarification, board, the proper procedure here would be a motion and a second to approve, and then we'll have comment and discussion before.
I move for adoption of school board policy C-225 with the option of us not hearing appeals under student due process rights. Second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any comment or discussion?
That information was great that you sent. Thank you for that. And clarify what President Aaron County is doing.
Do you have any additional comment or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Mr. Fessler. Board Policy C225.
You, Mr. President, members of the board. Our next policy for second reading is C575, school wellness. Small additions to this policy were from guidelines from the U.S. Department of Health. They assure that child nutrition department receives annual training in accordance with USDA standards. Second edition adds fundraising during the school day to the smart snack guidelines. The last edition from the USDA guidance just ensures drinking water is available throughout the day. I'd like to answer any questions you may have and respectfully ask for approval of revised school board policy C575.
Motion for approval of C575, school wellness.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any comment or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Mr. Fessler. Board Policy C575 is approved.
Thank you. Mr. President, members of the board, the next policy for second reading is F100, budget adoption and implementation. These changes to this policy were recommended by the Distressed Units Appeal Board and recommended for every district, even if that district is not involved with DUAP. I'd like to answer any questions you may have and respectfully ask for approval of revised school board policy F100.
I move for adoption of school board policy F100, budget adoption and implementation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comment or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Mr. Fessler. Board Policy F100 is approved.
President, members of the board, the next policy for second reading is F200, bidding and quoting requirements. We moved the information from this policy to the recently adopted F225 purchasing procedures policy. I'm offering this policy for removal. We welcome any questions that you have and respectfully ask for your approval to remove school board policy F200.
Motion for removal of F200, bidding, quoting, and requirement.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Fessler, just to clarify, can you confirm that all the pertinent information in the spirit of policy F200 is captured effectively in policy F225?
Yeah, certainly. That was the big monster policy that we looked at last month, and Dr. Samuels had time to look over that as well to make sure it fits everything.
Any additional comment or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Mr. Fessler. Policy F200 is approved.
Our last policy tonight for second reading is H175, public records. This policy outlines reasons the district can decline to respond to a request, including if we suspect the request to be data scraping or phishing, if we suspect that responding to the request electronically may jeopardize the security of our district's systems or data, and if the district finds out or finds the requester as party to a pending or ongoing litigation. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have and respectfully ask for approval of revised school board policy H175.
Recommend approval of H175, public record.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Any comment or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Mr. Fessler. Board policy H175 is approved.
Thank you all.
Okay, we'll move into board report. 2027 budget presentation and Form 3. Dr. Samuel.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And members of the board, you should have the presentation in your materials. I know sometimes it is hard to see to kind of go through this, and I appreciate Mr. Fessler bringing F100 budgeting board policy on the same night we're going to go through this. So hopefully I can live up to the expectations that he set out. Well played. Back here. As always, as we work through reports, if you have questions, it's a great opportunity to talk through that. That is the goal, complete understanding for the board and also for any community members listening online as well. So beginning with a couple slides that really outline what this process entails and what goes into it. Of course, we are here on August 10th. Tonight, we will go through this presentation, and then really the only item for this evening is ensuring that we have the authority to post Form 3 on Gateway for 10 days before that September 14th meeting where a public hearing will occur. And any community member that wishes to provide input on our budget has the opportunity to do that. And then we would also bring forward our bus replacement plan and capital assets plan. Those are all annual occurrences, but certainly we'll take time to go through those on the 14th. After that, on October 5th, it would be consider adoption of that proposed budget by the board. And then if approved, that Form 4 then goes to the Department of Local Government Finance, who is reviewing all of the budgets from taxing units across the county and aligning those. They all kind of play a role in what ends up happening with each unit. In December, then, they send us what is called our 1782 statement, and it brings all of our accounts back to where they should be, basically. One of the things we'll talk about on the next slides is we're in the budget process talking about the authority to spend, and we often talk about advertising high so that if any of these unknowns like enrollment or assessed value come in higher than expected, we don't have to come back to the board and ask for an additional appropriation for those. So that is really kind of what it looks like over the next few months. And then also want to review what it looks like behind the scenes. And so as we prepare this in the business office, what this process looks like is gathering all of our projected expenditures for calendar 2027, then collecting all of our anticipated revenue for 2027. So we're looking out toward 18 months from now or 16 months from now. Through that process, we just talked about that Form 3, the permission to advertise there. That would then turn into the Form 4, which would be the potential adoption of the budget. And then we just reviewed, again, that 1782 process where what I didn't mention is that comes to us, and then we have an opportunity to interact with DLGF for 10 days and say, hey, this one doesn't look quite right to us, or we'd like to actually change this tax rate and reduce it. Of course, we can't raise it. That authority to spend, is locked in. And we'll talk a lot more about that because of some of the unique circumstances around our budget this year with a proposed referendum on the ballot as we get through the presentation. So we can't say this enough. Remember, the budget process is about authority to spend. And so we mentioned it, but some of these numbers, in fact, most of these numbers are not likely to be what we actually end up spending. In fact, I can guarantee you that pretty much none of them are. But again, we're making sure that authority is there. That is different than the ability. The ability to spend is, do we have the dollar? And so that's the nuance between those pieces that is sometimes easy to get lost as we start diving into the numbers and what things look like on the Form 3. This slide, I don't think looks unfamiliar. We've gone through this quite a bit. I think that you all are well in the loop on this, but it's worth repeating. We have our education fund. That's the biggest bucket that we have from the state. On a per pupil basis, we get money to educate those young people and those children. Our debt service fund is dedicated to paying off debt. This is always where we like to remind the board and remind the public that those funds are set aside and can only be used for capital improvements in the debt service fund. They can't be used for salaries. They can't be used for positions. Can't be used for ongoing expenses. We also have our operations fund that funds annual repairs, equipment needed to run the district. We've again talked quite a bit in the not so distant past about what each of those costs that go into the operations fund are. And then we are fortunate to have the support of our community in a referendum fund that supports both the education fund and operations fund in our district. You will see an appropriation on our rainy day fund, similar to what we've done in years past. We list $5 million there. We do not anticipate to spend those dollars, but again, it is just giving that authority in the event that they are needed. Of course, we would keep the board in the loop, but we would not have to come back and get board action to have the authority to spend those out. So let's take a quick look at the Form 3. Need to orient, there's the zoom in. And we'll just take a quick walk through what you see here, but in reality, the rest of the presentation is just looking at each of these funds. And so we will begin with 3101, the education fund, and we'll talk about that, talk about some historical data there. Then we will shift to our operations fund that you can see here. And again, talk about some historical data with regard to revenue and expenditures there that brought us to these numbers. Following that, we would look at our 0180 debt service fund, and again, provide some additional context to those numbers along with historical data. Before then, moving to looking at referendum funds. And this part of Form 3 should look different than it has in years past. Not since the 2023 budget would you have seen 2 lines for referendums. And so we'll look at some screenshots that I think articulate this in even more detail. But in essence, what you see, the 0023 referendum fund number 2 is our current referendum. That is, as you can see, the current tax levy listing that we did levy for that referendum during 2026 at that amount. So it's showing that that's what's currently there. The 0022 referendum fund, we now have the ability in Gateway to add that potential revenue and the authority to spend it from the ballot question on with this additional line, additional fund. What is clear, I think needs to be clear, and what hopefully the rest of the presentation will illuminate, is those 2 funds equaling the potential revenue from a 60-cent referendum, as we've discussed in previous presentation. So that 35 cents currently plus what would be 25 cents equaling the 60 cents. So as we work through that part, those slides come toward the end, but I certainly will pause and go through those in as much detail as we need. All right, so the education fund, we know that the main driver here is first what the state is going to provide on a per pupil basis, and then how many students do we have, and that's basically the equation. The enrollment trend, as we've discussed also in great detail over the last few months, and you can see we show that leveling off as we prepare for the budget. We're showing flat enrollment as we look at the authority to spend, and of course are tracking that daily thanks to Dr. Harvey and his team as we approach the October 1st count date with great anticipation. It never hurts to remind everyone that it used to be the general fund and the CPF fund and bus replacement fund, and those went away about 10 years ago to the education fund and the operations fund. So just noting what functions of the school district must be paid and where those were shifted from prior to this current model. The last piece with the education fund is our historical transfer of dollars from the education fund to the operations fund to support all of those different components of our school district that keep it running on a daily basis. What you will see in 2025 is that transfer went down significantly, and our projections for 26 show that trend continuing because we don't have enough money in the education fund to transfer to the operations fund. Where we're carrying our cash balance is in the operations fund. And so when we think about spending cash balance, that aligns with that strategy and where those funds are being depleted from, whereas the education fund doesn't have that cash balance. And so therefore we can't move that fund into the negative and thus can't transfer those dollars. This just shows what we have listed on Form 3 in years past, shows that enrollment and that dollar amount of state aid, also reflecting what kind of that percentage increase is for MSD Wayne Township specifically. So I think one of the themes here is, and not a surprise, as we enter and wrap up year 2 of the biennium, that there wasn't a whole lot of per pupil increase in funding in this budget for MSD Wayne Township. Of course, we're also battling, as we've talked about previously, shifts in how curriculum materials are funded. We went from receiving about $2.5 million in revenue annually to not receiving that and it being rolled into the education fund. Unfortunately, with that not going up very much, we didn't quite make up that difference. Other, increasing expenses, we've talked about the increase in the teachers' retirement fund contribution that we're required to implement as well. And then, of course, we've talked again in great detail about the decrease in enrollment from 2025 to 2026 being a significant factor for the district. All right, shifting to the operations fund. At the top, you can see what we anticipate that appropriation being, what you would see on Form 3. That's what we anticipate spending. And again, that is bumped up so that we have, the appropriation appropriate. Then we go down to the maximum tax levy, and that is really quantified for us. The Department of Local Government Finance puts in the state legislature set the MLGQ, the maximum levy gross quotient, as how much can we grow our operations fund tax levy. Previously, for the last few years, it has been set at 4%. We could not increase our operations fund levy more than 4%. And so what that resulted in is the last few years, our tax rate went down because assessed value grew a little bit more than 4%, but our levy could not grow more than 4%. So that drove that tax rate down, even though the levy was incrementally increasing. That provision in state law was set to sunset, and our legislature did allow that to occur. So this year, for MSD Wayne and for Marion County, that is across the state, I should say, that is set at 6%. And so this $28,051,440 is 6% more than our levy last year. And if we collected that $28 million, that would be fantastic. But you also know from our previous discussions that the circuit breaker does impact that. We rely pretty heavily on policy analytics projections, and they've been very accurate in years past. They anticipate that circuit breaker impact being $18,267,000 or $267,700 that we don't collect from that tax levy. So meaning we would need to run the district operations on a total for 2027. We estimate about $9,783,740. So again, we've talked a lot about the challenges that presents and how fortunate we are to have had our community support us as we've weathered the circuit breaker impact for quite some time. When we think about the operations fund, it is also important to note how we're continuing to work to save dollars. So this slide is not new to you, but it's definitely worth revisiting that our trailing 12-month energy savings is basically $2.3 million. And so that is significant. That really, as we think about limited dollars in the operations fund, really makes a difference in what we can do. It certainly has been a great investment by the board over the last 8 to 10 years. Additionally, this this is the first slide that probably looks completely new in the whole presentation here. But we talked a lot about our propane fuel costs as we move to the new transportation center. Talked about the capacity of our fuel tank, reducing our delivery costs significantly, and also the hope that our central location will decrease the volume of gas and fuel that we need to travel those routes. And so I'm happy to report that after 1 year, both of those things have come true. You can see the 2025 propane costs at approaching $650,000, and the 2026 propane costs at under $375,000. Sorry, under 400, just under 400,000. I'm looking at the wrong side of the graph there. So a significant savings of, really about $250,000 in propane fuel costs, all in an environment when those costs are rising, around us. So again, a great endorsement of that strategy. And then you can also see the gallons going down that gold line from, around 393,000 down to about 367,000. So certainly both of those levers have helped us a great deal, and we feel really good about that savings. And then when you imagine the savings from electricity for those solar panels, we really start to see some real savings, and the investment starts to look really good with that facility opening and being online in year 1. We talked about assessed value quite a bit, and these are projections from policy analytics. And what we're seeing is that it's likely that these are going to be a little bit low, that actually we are going to see a slight increase in our assessed value that we're working into Form 3. But I put this in just for perspective of what we've talked about previously in the mechanisms behind Senate Enrolled Act 1 and what we anticipate that to do over the long term. Of course, every year we will track that. Reality will come as far as the assessed value for a given year, and we would certainly update this and continue to bring it to you in the event that obviously changes potentially from these projections. So shifting to the debt service, just like the operations fund is tied to our net assessed value. So I want to kind of orient everybody. The appropriation on the left is what we need the authority to spend. And so for 2027, not quite 43 million in bills that we need to pay for debt. So those would be bonds that have been issued over the last 20 years. These are the payments for 2027 to cover that debt. Then you can see our debt levy of 40 million. So we've worked hard to bring that down. This 2027 levy being the same as our 26 levy. And so how do we do that? How can we only levy and collect 40 million, but pay almost 43 million? We do have a cash balance in our debt service fund. And so what we have employed is a strategy to spend down that cash balance so that we can keep our debt rate and our debt levy as low as possible and still meet these obligations without taking that down to a level that makes us concerned. With that, maintaining a debt levy and the potential for increased assessed value, you can see that rate would continue to decrease as we keep that levy and what we ask our community for flat in the debt service. And now we shift to the operating referendum discussion. And again, this really just serves the purpose of what does that mechanism in SCA 1 do? This is what it does on our operating referendum. If our current referendum continued to 2030 and those assessed value projections came true, this is the trend of what dollars we would collect and be able to levy at that 35-cent rate over that time horizon. Again, I think a concept that we're now pretty familiar with, but it doesn't hurt to just take a quick look at that within the context of the next use law. So here's where it gets a little bit more complicated, and we'll talk through in more detail. We're always accounting for unknowns in the budget process, assessed value, enrollment, all of those things. This year, there's another unknown, and that is whether or not the referendum ballot question will be successful. So what we need to do in the budget process is ensure that, should it be successful, we have the authority to raise funds for the rate that 60 cents would generate. That's what we've talked with the board about. While the ballot question says 70 cents, that what we need to operate the district in 2027 is 60 cents. And so that gave us the challenge of how do we do that? And how do we ensure that that's as transparent as possible to the board and to the community? And how do we do that in a way that the Department of Local Government Finance is going to say, yes, that accomplishes your goal of achieving that authority? So we've had a couple different conversations, both over email and over the phone. I've talked with a handful of my colleagues in the school finance world that are also in this position. There are a couple different strategies being employed. But again, as we've discussed, what we're really looking for is that authority to spend the 60-cent rate across both of those funds on our Form 3. So we don't have the ability to show that in one fund, or chose that this was a more transparent way to demonstrate that. And so as we looked at previously, in essence, we're showing our current referendum of 35 cents, then the potential new referendum reflected as 25 cents, or a total of 60 cents across both of those funds. So what happens then? Let's switch to the next slide and come back to that one. What happens if and when that referendum is successful? When that 1782 form comes back to us in that event, what we would do is say, thank you, Department of Local Government Finance. We would like to set our rate for the 2019 referendum to 0 cents. So that means we would not be asking the community to fund any dollars in that scenario, in that old referendum. And then to apply that 60-cent rate to the new referendum that would then be listed. And so when we think about that, again, with the context of these screenshots, hopefully it starts to crystallize if it hasn't quite yet. So pointing mainly here to this top row, you can see what the operations fund tax rate, the debt service tax rate, and then this new potential referendum here at 25 cents, the old current referendum at 35 cents for the rate, and then what that would generate here at the bottom. So pause for a moment. Welcome any questions.
Thank you. So maybe it's just splitting hairs, but why would we drop that one to 0 and not just keep it at the same price or a lower price and make up the difference in the 60 cents? I mean, is it just accounting wise, or do you know what the question I'm asking there? Because obviously we're not gonna take it all the way to 70 cents. That's on the ballot. It could be lower. Why drop the first one to 0 when?
I think multiple reasons. Transparency and wanting somebody who went to Gateway to look at our budget to see kind of that we did what we said. that we did not take any dollars from that old referendum. The other piece is as we move forward, and when you think back to that Form 3, it's going to refer back in 28 to our levy in 27. And so I think it's fair, more fair and transparent to the community that they would see that previous levy on the same line at that and the rate that was versus two different lines, or potentially that 2019 referendum disappearing, I believe is what would happen from our budget, because we no longer have the authority to levy dollars there. And so in essence, the key word is transparency. Unfortunately, it's a convoluted enough process that it's just one of those that it takes a second to wrap your mind around. And of course, we've never been in this position before, because in a May referendum, we would have already known whether it was successful or not. The Department of Local Government Finance would have known it was successful, and it would have showed up with the ability for us to levy up to that maximum rate. And we would have gone through the whole process, and it would have shown here as already completed. But in November, with the way the budget process falls, and we don't have that luxury.
Just from, I thank you so much for that explanation, but just from my own understanding, we could get you at the same amount using the old.
There could, yes, we could do exactly what you said. We could levy 25 cents in a new one and maintain the 35 cents in the old one and achieve the same dollars, the same result. 100% true. 100%.
Without a big jump in, I mean, I think your way is much better because then there's not a big jump following the grant. So,
There's mud.
yeah.
So, just some other basic financial data is, I think, always important to check in when we have the opportunity to do this. We recently completed our Form 9 data from January 1 to June 30th. We've talked a lot about spending cash balance. As you know, in 2025, approximately $10 million of cash balance was spent. You also know we've been working really hard to find cost savings. And for the first half of the year, we did spend into cash balance, but that was reduced to about 2.5 million. Now, the conservative finance person in me wants to caution that is just a checkpoint. There are a number of things that happen in the first 6 months that don't happen in the second 6 months. One of those being indirect costs, which we get about $1 million from. And so there's some play there, but it overall is a good sign. It does point to finding cost savings. And the other piece of that is the second bullet there, that really the bulk of those 108 positions and stipends that we've been able to find to reduce over the last 18 months, the bulk of that savings is just beginning. When we begin paying for this school year, which occurred for new teachers on August 7th and will occur for everybody else on August 21st, that's when we really will start to get that picture of cost savings directly related to some of those savings that will just then be impacting the budget. So, of course, with everything, there's lots of other pieces there. We're also in August paying most of our summer school bill to teachers. And so it's going to be a little bit before we can really drill down and see what does that look like year over year comparison in those specific functions across the district. But we will certainly be doing that analysis every time, each month, and tracking that information. And then the other item to just, I think, reference as a financial piece from this year is the sale of our old transportation facility. You know, those are one-time dollars. So it's important to remember that. And we'll see how things shake out. But I think it's probably pretty likely that sale is going to be really close to what our 2026 deficit or cash balance spend ends up being. And so it's that important piece to help us maintain that cash balance through those one-time dollars. This is just a repeat, but so I would kind of pause again for questions, and then, as I mentioned, we do need just the approval to post this, and so I'll wait for questions because I know otherwise, once I ask you to consider it, we're going to be in that cycle. If there's any questions on the rest of the presentation in the budget process. Okay, but with that, members of the board, Mr. President, you should have Form 3 notice to taxpayers in your documents this evening. And while the budget process runs the next few months, tonight we are simply asking for the approval to advertise the Form 3. And as we talked about, it's helpful to think of these numbers as the ceiling for our authority to spend in 2027. But hopefully a lot of alignment and understanding of this process this evening. I certainly welcome any other questions that you have and request approval of Form 3 once it is finalized and we're able to confirm the unique components we discussed with the Department of Local Government Finance. We're waiting on that response. Appreciate your consideration of our ability to post and advertise Form 3.
Form 3, on to recommendation. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any comment or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Dr. Samuel. Please proceed with posting Form 3.
Thank you, sir.
Great information tonight. Thank you. Dr. Suggs, do you have any more information?
I'm gonna lift up, the smooth start to the school year. All of our buildings, our staff, our students did a tremendous job in starting off the school year. It was great to go around and greet students. I mentioned earlier that our high school students are doing a phenomenal job in putting away their electrical devices, phones, headphones, and really working hard to do what we're asking them to do in light of the new law. We have a lot going on really, really fast here at the start of the school year. I would like to make note that it is negotiation season. Right now is pre-negotiations. The official date to negotiate is September 15th. And a contract should be brought to you by November 15th. It's a Sunday this year. And so November 16th, that Monday. Ben Davis this past Friday participated in the state fair band day. They did numbers from the Lion King, and placed third place in that competition, did a phenomenal job. So we're really proud of them. This Saturday is going to be really busy for our community. We have a community safety day at Sam's Club. That's an annual event. Our child nutrition bus will be there. Indie Gateway will be there. Lots of our community partners. Also that day, this is a new event. It's called the Underdog Day. When you go back, Sam's Club Safety Day is 10 to 1 p.m. And then we have Underdog Day that same day, hosted at Chapel Rock Christian Church. Don Carlisle is organizing this event from 12 to 3. It really highlights mentorship for our young people. The community is invited to that event, hoping for a good turnout. So I wanted to lift that opportunity up. And then football season, our scrimmage is this Friday with Westfield at home. And we have 4 games at home this year, all others are away. And something really unique to this season is the opportunity to participate in the Circle City Classic Fall Festival at Lucas Oil. That is Saturday, September 26th. More information to come as we get closer. It's a big, big day.
Outstanding. Do you have any other board information or comments?
It's that question about where we are. We've been rolling 14, right?
So we're at 14,900. We're still working on withdrawals, right? So the people that have not, young people haven't shown up or withdrew. So we're cleaning the data right now, but I will also say, as fast as we're cleaning the data, we have students that are enrolling. So we're very hopeful that we'll be able to hit our target of 50,000. That would really be awesome.
Dr. Sub? Anything else, board? We have a motion to adjourn.
I move to be adjourned at 7:44 PM.
A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned at 7:44.